What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rays, and I'm back on the channel bringing some more sync content your way. Now, today's video, I actually wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to do a tier guide ready for the PvP season, because we have had some changes to the cooldown times when it comes to abilities for the majority of the runners. This has now become generalized across the board, apart from Dr. Stone, where this is now 30 seconds as standard for your cooldown, and you do have ways of being able to adjust that. You do have ways of being able to knock down runners and get your ability back faster. You do have things in terms of syncing up with Prime Nanos that is able to refresh your cooldown as well. So all I wanted to do is just have a brief discussion about which ones are basically meta picks, which ones you should be avoiding when it comes to PvP, because I am expecting a little bit of an influx when it comes to Season 1 and people being able to try out the mode. Now, we'll be adjusting this over time once we get more runners, because we do have the brand new runner, which we believe is going to be called Amelia. Obviously, this could be subject to change. That's just what was found in the files. And of course, if you do want to be able to find out what their ability is going to be, then I recommend you check out the video that's in the top right corner, and we'll be placing a video card right now. But in terms of the 6 runners that we currently have access to in Season 0, I'm going to be rating them based on meta, strong contenders, decent choice, mediocre, and best to avoid. So you have an idea as to what runner you should be rocking when it comes to PvP. Of course, if you do enjoy this type of content, you want to see more from ourselves when it comes to synced, especially with the future and future seasons, then make sure to drop that like and subscribe so you can find your way back to the channel for more content just like this. With all that said and done, what are we waiting for? Let's dive right into the guide. Okay, so I'm thinking that we potentially work our way across the list, as you can currently see what we do have here. So we do have Deadcut, we do have Dr. Stone, we have Glory, we have Lela, we do have Park, and we also have Ragna. So we'll just be discussing what their kit brings to the table, what makes them so good at what they're able to do, and where this kind of ranks when it comes to PvP against each other. So let's have a talk about Deadcut first and foremost. This makes sense here. Now, Deadcut in of himself is a great runner. He is able to put extra damage on last bullet of his guns. This is especially useful on the old timer. This makes your shotgun kills much more efficient, because you're able to have that lingering damage over time that's able to get some extra damage, just in case you miss 1 or 2 of your pellets, and that is able to get that down for you. This is especially useful in solo as well, because while it is pretty decent over on PvP when it comes to team size, being able to use the old timer is the main way that you're going to benefit from his ability, because it only has 2 shots, and one of those shots is always going to have the dragon breath effect on it, which means that you're going to get that fire damage over time. And then once you do that reload, you have your first shot that does normal damage, and then your second shot once again has that dragon breath, just further extending the amount of damage that you're able to do. And like I said, it just helps with that consistency of being able to get that down once you manage to land that second shot. Now, in terms of his ability, which is the one that did get changed, this is going to be the fire grenade. It's going to be your incendiary bomb. This did get changed from 60 seconds down to 30 seconds. This is one of the most impactful changes that does exist in the game. It's definitely worthwhile being able to use this, because this is already a deadly grenade. It already is very good. It already is very good at being able to create some space for yourself. It's a great way of being able to start a fight. It does require a little bit of accuracy, but it does have a lingering area of effect as well, because once the grenade does land, it then splits out into smaller grenades and then affects that pool of area right there. It's very, very good. That damage over time as well lingers. It also stops the regeneration that other runners have of being able to get their armor back. So once you've hit them, that damage over time is just going to stop them from being able to get it, unless they've got something manual, like being able to have, I think it's blood-soaked shields or something like that. If you're able to pop a medkit, you're able to get your armor back or something like that. So that's the only way that you can really counter that. Being able to use a medkit is the other way of being able to counter the damage over time, but you're forcing them to have that downtime in a fight, being able to deal with that, rather than you pushing them and being able to actually get all up in their face to get that down. So it's because of all that we've just talked about, and it's also because of how impactful that fire grenade can be, and being able to get a 50% reduction in its cooldown is pretty huge in terms of a buff to Deadcut. I'm actually going to put him in strong contenders. I do love being able to use Deadcut. I do love pairing him up with dual old timers, especially in solo. It's still pretty decent in teams, but because you're able to be pushed by 3 people rather than just being able to deal with 1 threat at a time, you don't necessarily see him too much in team play, but he is absolutely amazing once it comes to solo. And because of that change that we're able to do and being able to get that incendiary grenade, I do think that Deadcut is going to be one of the better ones to be able to put up on this list. So the second one for us to talk about is going to be Dr. Stone. Now, Dr. Stone unfortunately did not get an amendment to his ability as far as we can tell, so there's no change in his cooldown and there is no change in how useful it is. And the main reason for this is because most of the changes were done with PvE in mind, and because it isn't an offensive ability, and because he is top tier, like god tier, if not anything else, over on PvE, it didn't really need the change, and it wasn't really a justification to be able to reduce it down further, especially in PvE, considering we're able to get that hands-free, like be able to revive him or everything like that. It just didn't make any sense to be able to like buff that up in any kind of capacity whatsoever. Now, once it comes to PvP, Dr. Stone does have a couple of uses. You know, he's very good at being able to do it in a team fight. He's kind of borderline useless once it comes to solo play, because you do want to be able to have an ability to counter whoever it is that you're going up against. Now, there are a couple of uses outside of that do actually make Dr. Stone very useful, like I've mentioned already. Blood-soaked shields is absolutely amazing, and because he has faster medkit healing, it means you have less downtime, meaning that you can actually pop in a medkit during a fight, and then once again you're back up and ready to be able to go. So you managed to get that 50 HP, and if you do have that ability over on your perk 1 slot, you're able to get all of your armor back. So that is anywhere between an extra 10, 20, 30 or even 40 HP, depending on what rank or what rarity your armor actually is. So because of that, I do think he has a couple of choices, but he hasn't got anything offensive-based. Now, in a team-based capacity, this is a little bit different, because you are able to pop off those revives a little bit quicker. I have done a bit of like a short video talking about it, but if you do combine Dr. Stone with the Guardian and the Bubble Shield, you can instantly pretty much revive people off the floor. It only takes literally 1 second. I think it's like he combines 60% faster if you do have the mods and everything built into his actual kit. So you can pretty much like pick up a knocked person in less than 2 seconds, which is crazy, and they just get straight back into the fight. So Dr. Stone is very impactful. You do obviously have his healing drone, which is going to be able to pick up teammates from the floor, be able to heal, like do an AoE heal as well, which is really, really nice. It gives you a nice sustain. If you're being a bit more defensive, then Dr. Stone is actually very, very useful. It's just that most of the strategies that do work in this game require you to be offensive, and you do get rewarded for being offensive in this game. So therefore, Dr. Stone can't really go too much higher than meta, or you can't go into strong contenders either. It's because of this that I'm going to generalize it across team and solo play. I'm actually going to put him inside decent choice, because if it was going to be purely based on solo, then it would be in mediocre, because he only has a couple of like actual uses inside the mode. But because he is actually kind of decent in terms of being able to have at least one on the team, in terms of Dr. Stone, and if you do build him right with the mods, then he actually can be a very like impactful kind of role to actually have. So I'm actually going to like generalize it. I'm going to put him inside decent choice. Next up we have Glory, and Glory originally, back in the betas, used to be one of the best runners that you're able to use. Being able to have a poison gas grenade, which is absolutely amazing, being able to like obscure vision, it's able to do damage, you're able to look through it with your own ability because of how you're able to interact with sights and scopes. Glory was absolute monster, it was absolute menace at being able to take down PvP, but it's actually kind of shifted away from that because people have realised how impactful the abilities can be. Now Glory in of itself, with the smoke bomb, has had a cooldown reduced from 50 seconds down to 30 seconds, which is a very welcome change. It does mean that we're able to use her kit a lot more, which is very, very nice to see. And once again, it can be used as a like a bit of a deterrent. It can be used as a like a crowd control kind of feature. It just doesn't have the AoE or the damage compared to what Deadcut has with his fire grenade, and that's a good thing. It has a bit more utility towards it rather than being able to be purely offensive or like defensive kind of based. So therefore, Glory is kind of balanced in her own ability. Now, being able to have those highlighted runners inside of your scopes is a very nice feature. It definitely helps out if you are using something like a DMR, or if you are using a bolt-action sniper rifle. It helps you to be able to see through some of the foliage, it helps you to be able to see through some of the stuff that's going on, and it definitely also helps you be able to see through your own smoke grenade. So what you can do is, as a certain tactic, is plant your smoke grenade down where you currently are, and then you're able to look through that with relative safety, as long as there is another Glory on the other side. But people have tended to move away from Glory because it doesn't have like as much like up in your face kind of help. Most of the scoped weapons in this game outside of DMRs are kind of lackluster. So most people are able to kind of detect enemies as well, which is kind of nullifies a little bit of the like kind of kit. And the only other bit is being able to help with weak point damage to nanos, which you're not necessarily going to be doing too much because you're going to be primarily going up against runners. So that is once again not really helping you out. So that kind of leaves her with her own ability, which is once again a little bit mediocre compared to something like Dead Cut. So if you are looking for a damaging AoE type of grenade, something that can be used in that kind of capacity to push people off a certain place, then you would probably go for something like a Dead Cut rather than being able to go for a Glory. That being said, Glory is still pretty useful because you are able to use her grenade to obscure a certain area rather than being able to be Dead Cut where you can actually have the enemy stand inside the fire at their own detriment and they will still be able to easily see you pushing. Glory is able to put up that smoke screen so they are able to take damage inside of it, and it does give them a reason to be able to move out of it other than just taking damage. It's because of this that I'm actually going to put her ahead of Dr. Stone. I'm actually going to say she is a decent choice. She's pretty decent for solo. She is pretty decent for team play. And I do think she has a bit more of an offensive utility over that of Dr. Stone. But you primarily find it as more of a support slash sniper kind of role because of how her kit kind of works with scopes. But so you'll see her more of at the backline using DMRs to be able to poke enemies at a distance. So we head on over to the ninja herself. This is going to be Lela. Lela is a pretty fun character to be able to mess about with. Now, the problem is that her gadget in of itself is not very strong. I think it's very misleading. Some people actually read the text on it and think it's instantly like a cloak. If you've ever played something like Team Fortress 2 and you've seen how the spy kind of interacts, and you think it's just pure invisibility and able to have free roam of that while the ability is up, it doesn't work like that whatsoever. You are able to be easily spotted with this ability, especially if people are looking out for you. Now, the other issue with the ability is the insanely loud audio cue that kind of gives you away that you're actually doing the ability in the first place. So I do think she's kind of overtuned in that sense that she actually needs a little bit of a buff when it comes to her own ability. But it was really nice to see that her own ability has been reduced down from 60 seconds to 30 seconds, which means that you can stay invisible a lot longer, or a little bit more frequently, and it is actually still a decent ability to use if you aren't moving, because if you aren't moving whatsoever, you do actually become perfectly invisible, which is a great way of being able to ambush a team, especially if they are pushing towards you. If they're being aggressive, you can actually use this in a defensive manner rather than offensive, and that does mean that you then are able to actually get the drop on certain runners should they run past you in that sense. Now, in terms of the rest of her kit, the other one is that she's able to restore some of her health if she does get a melee kill, which is kind of okay. You will probably use this more against the PvE threats that exist in this, so this doesn't tend to actually crop up that much unless you're kind of on a regain. But the other thing is that she actually gains a movement speed if she is shot near to, or if she is actually shot at. This is very, very impactful. It's actually very misleading as to how good this can actually be. And once you do combine it with a couple other movement techs that do exist in this game, you can actually get a very fast Lela that can be used for aggression. She can be used for defensive to be able to get out of a certain situation. So she's actually very good at being able to get out and being able to reposition once you do combine it with a gadget, because you're able to then, like I said, turn yourself invisible. If you get shot at near because they're trying to track you down, they're trying to find you, you can actually use that to your advantage to be able to reposition much faster than they can actually chase you. So Lela is a very difficult target to be able to pin down, and she can be used to be able to be very pesky inside of firefights. That being said, though, once again, her gadget definitely needs a look at to be able to be considered like top tier viable or in that kind of sense, because it is just too easy to be able to spot one once they're actually starting to push you and being able to go on the aggressive. So as it currently stands, I do think that she is a strong contender. I do think she is behind Dead Cut in that sense, because her gadget doesn't do any damage in of itself. It's still very easy to be able to spot one, but in terms of like the rest of her kit, it is very PvP kind of centric, and I do think that she does have the potential to start getting closer to meta if they do actually give it a bit more of a look. Now, obviously, that's going to be a balancing nightmare, because we don't want her to be completely invisible to get the full drop on people, but I do think that she is a little bit too easy to be able to spot as it currently stands, so I hope that the dev team do take note of this and they do actually give it a look in future seasons. So that leaves us with two absolute juggernauts when it comes to PvP, and this is going to be Park. Now, Park is going to be going straight up to the top of meta. Park is currently the undisputed champ once it comes to PvP, and I genuinely think that he kind of needs a bit of a nerf right now. Now, if you're unsure as to why that's the case, if you're unsure as to why Park should be considered this once you've had a read of his kit, then let me just explain it to you quite simply. Well, at Synced Up, which obviously I'm part of the team of, along with a few other content creators, we do run the tournaments. We do specifically limit Park because of how his ability works, and his ability is so strong that we actually don't care about the rest of his kit, because it does does actually absolutely nothing for the rest of everything else. The reason why is because the bouncing ball grenade has a massive AoE compared to like how it works. What this one does is that it tracks runners. You're able to chuck in a certain radius. I haven't quite pinpointed down exactly how big this radius is, but it is very, very generous. And you're able to chuck this grenade in a certain location that is relatively nearby. This will then bounce from that location that it's just landed to be able to then hit a runner that's nearby. This can then also ricochet to other runners that are nearby as well, so definitely factor that in as well. So if there is like a team kind of like capacity in that kind of sense, you will throw this this basically big massive electric bouncy ball that will hit that first runner, and then it will, if there are runners nearby, if it detects any, it will then bounce to those in sequence, and it will do around about 32 to 33 points of damage, which is also treated as shock damage, which essentially strips off almost all pieces of armor that the runner does have. Now, technically, in theory, you could potentially survive if you do have legendary armor, but keep in mind that this is an ability that is relatively easy to cast. It's able to chain over to other runners that are also nearby, and it pretty much destroys every single resemblance of armor that you do have, instantly putting you at a disadvantage, come ready for that firefight that's just about to happen. On top of that, which we already thought the ability was already pretty broken and needed some kind of nerf, they've now actually reduced the cooldown of it, going down from 60 seconds all the way down to 30 seconds, which means that as a park player, you can pretty much have this backup ready for every single kind of engagement that you're going to be theoretically running into, and it just means that you're just going to be dealing with your own armor, and so you're going to be potentially having anywhere between 110, 120, maybe 130, or even 140 HP, going up against another runner that is going to be at best 100 HP and lower, depending on how much like armor they had in the first place and how much the rubber ball actually does do. But of course it gets even more absurd if there is in a team capacity, because obviously if you do have the other runners that are stood nearby and they're also going to have their armor stripped, that is going to be done in multitudes of 32, 33 damage, meaning that we're going to be doing around about 99 points of damage potentially to armor against all kind of runners that are going to be stood in front of us. Now, once again, this is just one single park with one single ability activation that's able to do this. If you do throw in 2 more parks in the exact same team that are all going to be chucking their grenades simultaneously, once again, that is going to be around about 96 to 99 points of damage to every single runner that is going to be hit by that bouncing ball. And once again, that can chain to other runners, so they're all going to take pretty much that. That is almost always a full health bar, and then that just allows you to be able to mop them up once it comes to whatever armor they had that was just kind of pushing them over that certain health cap. And once again, this gets even more crazy, because if we do factor in certain mods that are able to get us cooldown back on being able to down a runner, and being able to also do things with like being able to increase our movement speed, with being able to cast our abilities and things like that, if we fully invest in terms of this ability, you can pretty much get your runner ability back pretty much straight away. It does mean that with Park, you do have to, with how the mod kind of works, you do have to get 2 downs. If you do get 2 downs, you're able to instantly refill your cooldown back, but even with 1, that's 15 seconds knocked off that cooldown, which means that you only have to wait 15 more seconds, and once again you've got another grenade that can pretty much strip the armor off every other runner that's going to be coming by. So even in third party kind of scenarios, you can pretty much almost always have your grenade back, and that's probably the most optimal way to be able to play Park. With this in mind, we will be saying that Parker definitely needs some kind of nerf. He definitely needs reining in some kind of capacity, and we're genuinely surprised as to how much buffing that cooldown has just kind of been, and because of that, he is pretty much meta. If you are going into PvP, Park is the way to be able to run this game. Now, obviously, like I said, the whole point of this video was to be able to show you off certain other runners that you can get away with, just in case you do have a favourite, but if you are looking purely on paper, if you're purely looking like theoretically which is the strongest runner that currently exists in the game, then Park is pretty much that one until something gets changed. Now, last one for us to basically talk about is going to be Ragna, or Ragna, depending on however you'd like to pronounce it. Ragna is pretty much a very good kind of PvP-centric runner that you should actually be running, and the reason why is because her wallhack ability is a great way of being able to detect where enemies are. This is perfect for if you do go into a close quarters kind of scenario. One, because the ability is relatively close quarters in of itself, but on top of that, it is absolutely like a monster to be able to like detect, and going into a firefight firefight pretty much where every single runner is going to be, so you're able to start that firefight on your own terms. What's also really nice about this ability is that I believe it also gives the wall hack ability to other runners that are on your same team, so they're able to get to see where they are as well, meaning that you're able to do a coordinated push, which is insanely powerful, especially in this game, because if you are able to get 2 or even 3 runners all firing at the exact same location all at the same time, you'll pretty much be wiping the floor with every single runner team that you're going to be coming up against. Now, in terms of the ability, it doesn't do any damage in of itself, which is a little bit of a shame. Obviously, that's still kind of balanced for the fact that it does give you basically team wall hacks. But Ragna then also has in her kit ways to be able to detect if runners are nearby, because she has like a mini kind of seer scan in that sense. She kind of is able to tell you if runners are kind of around your kind of presence. She does give off an audio cue. She does have a little icon that pops at the bottom of the screen. And then on top of that, she is able to down a runner. She is able to heal up a certain amount of health. I think if I recall right, it's anywhere between 25 to around about 33% of your actual health bar, but this is a gradual thing, which means that you don't necessarily need as many medkits, which means that you can go very, very aggressive with Ragna, because you're able to heal up your health. If you go for Bloodthirsty, which allows you to be able to like instantly heal up your armor. If you do manage to knock a runner, you're able to get your armor back. You're able to then gradually heal up during that time period, and that is perfect for third parties, because if you do get attacked again, you've once again healed up all your armor, you've healed up most of your HP, and you're ready to be able to take on that next engagement. With that, Ragna pretty much sits at the top of strong contenders, so I do think that if it wasn't a case that the bouncing ball was so strong for Park, she would probably be the best pick to be able to go for when it comes to PvP, but in this current meta, that's pretty much how it sits. Now, it's just the end of the video. I did have a little bit of a rejig just because I wanted to be able to balance this out rather than it being like full all the way across. I just wanted to be able to show off like better, like which are the better kind of runners, which ones are kind of like sit in that kind of tier, and be able to do it that way. So what I've done is I've moved Lela down to decent choice, so we don't have 3 strong contenders. Just know that she is the top of that group, and then I've also moved Dr. Stone down to here to be able to put him straight into mediocre, because like I said, he doesn't necessarily have the kit that everyone else does. He doesn't have the offense, he doesn't necessarily have the defense, but he's still not one to be able to avoid. He's still a decent-ish kind of choice, so I just kind of wanted to be able to showcase this off a little bit better. But there you go, that is my tier picks, that is my reasonings behind all of those, and that is also my brief description to be able to help you out, so you're able to choose which one of the runners that you want to take into PvP. Let me know in the comments section down below, do you think I've got it right, do you think I've got it wrong, how would you currently set these out, and I will be making this template available on Tier Maker, so if you do want to be able to choose your own, all these images are pretty much available for anyone to be able to use. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. Massive thank you to the Babylonian family, as always, for their continued support. It really does help the channel out. And if you want to see more from ourselves, like I said, videos like just like this, if you want me to do like a PvE kind of example or something like that, let me know in the comment section down below. But make sure to drop that like and subscribe so you can find your way back for more content. With all that said and done, that just leaves me to say, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on our next video.